We last met on 17 November, 4 weeks ago, and we are here today following a period of focused and intense regional engagements. There has been recent meetings of the IGAD Council of Ministers, the African Union Peace and Security Council, and the United Nations Security Council, during which the fast-tracking of the peace process in the Republic of South Sudan has been on the top of the agenda. And it was the recent in the discussions of the 6th Governors Forum. On 30th November 2022, RJMEC attended and engaged with the IGAD Council of Ministers at its 48th ordinary session in Khartoum, Sudan, and addressed the African Union Peace and Security Council on the same day. I also briefed the UN Security Council last night. With respect to the IGAD meeting, allow me to highlight some of the critical resolutions made concerning the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement. The Council welcomed the roadmap. The Council urged the RTGNU and the parties to implement the roadmap in letter and spirit. The Council decided to undertake a joint ministerial visit to Juba, and the Council agreed to hold a biannual extraordinary IGAD Council of Ministers meeting to review progress in the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement, and also the Council agreed to convene a meeting of the IGAD Chiefs of Defense Forces to assess the immediate needs of CSAM-FM. Regarding the AU Peace and Security Council meeting held on 30th November, it reiterated the commitment of AU as a guarantor of the revitalized agreement, requested that its panel of the wise to visit South Sudan, and it also decided to undertake a solidarity visit to South Sudan on the 3rd anniversary of the formation of the transitional government on 22nd February 2023. Clearly, RJMEC's appeals regarding the importance of consolidating our efforts, speaking with one voice, and bringing our collective leverage to bear and push for timely implementation of the roadmap has been taken seriously, and this augurs well for South Sudan. I also had the opportunity recently to brief His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, on issues related to the revitalized peace agreement. Furthermore, the holding of the Interparliamentary Games here in Juba, featuring so many members of parliament from the East African region, is a very positive signal. The leadership in the region and beyond have shown their determination to urgently build on recent progress in order to push for more implementation. Therefore, it is incumbent upon the revitalized transitional government of national unity to match that level of determination in the pace of implementation of the roadmap. Furthermore, the recently concluded 6th Governors Forum, with the theme accelerating the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement in accordance with the roadmap 2022, also provided a high-level platform to deliberate the issues which are critical to the timely implementation of the agreement. Thus, as we come to the close of the year 2022, my statement this morning will only highlight the most recent developments in the implementation of the revitalized agreement on the resolution of the conflict in the Republic of South Sudan, RRCs, in accordance with the roadmap since our last plenary. I will also focus on the progress made, outstanding tasks within the roadmap timeframe, and the conclusion with recommendations. Excellencies, first, governance. Since the last time we met, the National Constitutional Amendment Committee, NCSC, has made significant progress drafting key priority legislation with the National Election Act 2012 and the Anti-Corruption Commission Act 2009, both recently completed and submitted to the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Additionally, the NCSC has begun its review of the National Revenue Authority Act and the Bank of South Sudan Act and the Banking Act to ensure alignment with the RRCs. That said, These bills are yet to be presented to the Council of Ministers or tabled to the Transition National Legislature. I urge further progress in this regard. In regard to security, the graduation on 21st November in Malaka, Upper Nile State, brings the total of those graduated in Phase 1 of the Unified Forces to approximately 49,000 out of the 53,000. As reported at the last plenary, commencement of Phase 2 of the forces was to have begun by 30th September 2022. It is expected that Phase 2 will involve troops assembling in cantonment sites with weapons and ready to move to the training areas. I look forward to receiving an update from the RTGNU on this. Next, regarding the system VM verified violations of transition security arrangements, in my last plenary statement, I highlighted 2 violation reports, namely the sexual and gender-based violence in Koch and Leah counties of Unity State, and the torture and killings of 3 civilians in Kiriboma of Kaji-Kenju County, Central Equatorial State. I would like to report that RJMEC received a response from the SSPDF Chief of Defense Forces on the latter, who informed us that the investigations were concluded and the matter is before the court. In the same vein, it is important that RJMEC's other letters about violations be responded to accordingly. Since our last plenary, System VM has written further violation reports about denial of access, information, harassment of System VM personnel at Winliet cantonment site in Central Equatorial State, and recruitment and training in Northern Bargasel State. System VM will provide details on this. As highlighted in our recent joint statement of RJMEC, UNMISS, the African Union mission in South Sudan, IGAD, and some members of the international community, RJMEC is deeply concerned over the escalating violence both Upper Nile and Jonglei states, with innocent lives being lost, thousands displaced, livelihoods and property destroyed. If not addressed urgently, the wider ramification of such violence could destabilize the ongoing implementation of the peace agreement. It is important that System VM, which reports to RJMEC, be given the necessary resources to investigate and evaluate such instances of violence. In terms of humanitarian affairs, according to UN OCHA, an estimated 9.4 million people are expected to have humanitarian and/or protection needs in 2023, an increase of 500,000 people since 2022. As we know, there are growing concerns that the magnitude and the severity of humanitarian needs are persistent and rising. Therefore, I would like to reiterate the importance of the establishment of the Special Reconstruction Fund, a critical coordinating mechanism for recovery and development efforts. I appeal to the RTGNU to establish the board of the Special Reconstruction Fund and for it to work closely with partners to mobilize the requisite resources, including through the South Sudan Pledging Conference. On the management of economic finance resources, it is encouraging to note that overall, the RTGNU has registered some milestones in policy reviews and the management of natural resources, agriculture policies, strategies, and programs. The National Lands Policy is now in its final stage. However, the policy for the management and use of the country's water bodies, including but not limited to the River Nile, that was prioritized in the roadmap, has yet to be developed. In Chapter 5, Transition Justice, RJMEC expects public consultations with refugees and persons in diaspora to commence soon to further guide the drafting of the legislation establishing the Commission for Truth, Reconciliation and Healing, CTRH. The Ministry of Justice continues to undertake expert consultations that will inform the Compensation and Reparation Authority, CRH, legislation framework. RJMEC urges the Ministry to complete this phase of the process and expedite the drafting of the CTRH the CRA bill. In Chapter 6, the parameters of the permanent constitution, I am informed that the Constitution-Making Process Bill 2022, passed by the Transitional National Legislature, TNLA, has not yet been submitted to the President for assent to become law. This is important to kickstart the reconstitution and appointment of relevant institutions essential for making of the new constitution, which includes the National Constitutional Review Commission, the preparatory subcommittee for convening the National Constitution Conference, and the Constitution Drafting Committee. Meanwhile, it is important to note that the agreement institutions and mechanisms such as the NCSC, Judicial Reforms Committee, System VM, among others, are critical to the ongoing implementation of the agreement. It is essential that the allowance of their national members continue to be paid in order to facilitate their work, and I would like to receive a report from the National Transition Committee or the RTGNU on this matter. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as I have said previously in this forum, peaceful and democratic elections are within our reach and are possible in the next 24 months if we focus our collective efforts on facilitating progress. My recommendations to RTGNU are as follows. RTGNU to adhere to the roadmap timelines and prioritize their implementation through the availing of predictable, timely, and adequate funding for all tasks. B, urge the Reconstituted TNLA to expedite the processing of all bills before the legislatures. C, commence with phase 2 of the unification of forces, which is overdue, and to avail funding and political support to the DDR programs, which is an essential component for the unification of forces. D, address subnational violence, especially in Upper Nile and Jungle states, hold perpetrators accountable, and take steps to address the root causes and protect civilians and their property. E, kickstart preparations for the reconstitution and appointment of the critical constitution-making mechanisms and institutions, including giving due attention to the 5% level of women's participation, as well as taking note of the youth and people living with disabilities. And F, take note of both the communiques from the 48th Ordinary Session of the IGAD Council of Ministers and the 11th 23rd meeting of the AU Peace and Security from their 30th November meeting in South Sudan. In conclusion, I would like to take this opportunity to highlight the first resolution of the 6th Governors Forum, which affirmed the commitment of the states and their administrative areas to the implementation of the RACRIS through the Roadmap 2022. With this in mind, and against the backdrop of the diplomatic support affirmed that the IGAD, AU, Peace and Security Council, and the UN Council, RJMEC expects that progress should be more rapid and substantial in the year 2023. As I told the Governors Forum, there are immense tasks and expectations ahead, and even with the extension time, it is essential that the people of South Sudan deserve nothing less than total implementation of the roadmap in letter and spirit in order to enjoy the peace dividends it brings. I would like to finally take this opportunity to wish each one of you a Merry Christmas, and may the new year bring you the strength and impetus to continue the important work of building durable peace in South Sudan. I thank you.